Hi, welcome to Coturnix Corner. My name's Terry, and today we're going to be reviewing the Comfortplast Quail Cage system. About 2 weeks ago, Ryan over at hatchingtime.com sent me this 3-tier unit to test out and do a review and an unboxing video for the channel. The time we received it, we did do the unboxing video where we basically showed all the components that come with each system. We showed how they were packaged and the condition they were in when they arrived. We also briefly touched on the assembly process. If you see me referring to my notes, it's because I've got a lot of information that I want to share with you guys, and I know I couldn't remember it all, so I jotted it down, and I will be referring to it throughout this video. Okay, the cages are modular in design. You can start out with as little as one individual cage and add on and build all the way up to a 5-tier 15 cage unit. Assembly was pretty straightforward. Each of the pieces have arrows which correspond to arrows on the other pieces, and basically you just line them up and snap them together. So it's kind of hard to make a mistake when you're putting this thing together. I think it took me about an hour to assemble this entire unit. The interior space of each of the cages measures 12 inches wide and 18 inches deep, which gives you a 1.5 square foot of floor space. Hatching Time states that this unit will hold between 90 and 108 birds. I have my own opinions about that, and I'll go into it a little bit more in depth later on in this video. Each unit comes with a watering system that consists of a 5-gallon container which sits on top of the cage, and the water exits here in a filtered elbow and is distributed to each of the watering rails for each individual cage. Each cage has a poultry style watering nipple, and underneath that nipple is a little plastic cup that snaps onto the rail, and that I guess is to catch any excess water that should dribble out of the nipple. The feeders are a plastic trough type feeder which just locks onto the front of the cage. Basically just lift up on it and slide it out, and you can see here on the fronts of the cages there are some plastic locks. You just line them up and they lock right in. They also have a little shelf down here that they sit on. The feeders also have a plastic grate, looks like 1 inch by 1 inch spacing, and that is meant to keep the quail from kicking the food out of the feeder. And so far I can say that the feed, or the wasted feed, is very little. It's got this little plastic rail, and I'll show you a little close-up of this in a minute, that as they scrape the feed towards them, it blocks it from being kicked out of the cage. Okay, so the entire cage system is made out of an ABS plastic, which I believe is injection molding. It's very hygienic and very easy to keep clean, and also the flooring, the spacing on the flooring is large enough that all the manure falls through the flooring and into the manure trays below, and also the flooring is rounded, so it's very easy on the quail's feet. The angle of the floor and the rollout trays seem to be sufficient enough that all the eggs roll forward, but not too steep to cause any damage to the eggs. And also there's plenty of room between the front of the feed trough and the edge of the rollout tray to make collecting the eggs pretty easy. If you were to let some eggs accumulate up, you could always lift the feed trough out, collect your eggs, and reinstall the feed trough. Okay, and the unit comes with dual-wheeled casters. That makes moving the unit around pretty easy. Also, 2 of the casters have locking devices on them, to where when you got the cages where you want them, you can just lock them devices down and they're not going to go anywhere. Okay, so that was the highlights of the cage system. Now we're going to go into my review. I've had 2 weeks to test out this unit, and I'm going to give you my thoughts on how well I think that the cage is actually performed. When I first looked into these, I thought that these cages were a bit pricey for what they were, but I went online and I compared these cages with another well-known supplier who builds all metal galvanized cages, and the price difference was only about $50 for roughly the same size cage. I also compared all the accessories that you get between the two companies. All the accessories that are included on this cage, some of them are not included on the other suppliers' cages. They are available as add-ons, but if you were to add them onto the price, it would put you over the $50 difference that we have between the two cages. I'm not going to compare the quality of the two cages, only because I don't have the other cage here to compare them side by side. I'm only going to talk about the quality of these cages in this review. Like I said, I've had this cage for about 2.5 weeks now, and I have had a chance to test it out with some of my birds, and I can honestly say that I was pleasantly surprised with the performance of the cage. As far as keeping it clean, it actually outperformed some of my wire bottom cages, which was pretty surprising. I do like the fact that the flooring is made of a rounded over plastic, which I know is protecting my birds' feet. I also like the fact that the ABS plastic is very hygienic. It's very easy to clean compared to some of my wood frame cages. The wood frame cages have cracks and crevices which can host bacteria, mites, and other debris in there that even if you pressure wash them, it's kind of hard to get that out sometimes. So yeah, I'm very happy with that. I know there are some concerns online that I read in the comments section of the unboxing video about the durability of the ABS plastic. So I went online and I did quite a bit of research on the ABS plastic and found out that it is actually very durable. You can expect 10 plus years out of it, depending on how you take care of it. It's also very UV resistant, which I was always under the assumption that plastic degrades when it's out in the sun and becomes brittle. It doesn't seem to be so in this case. They actually make boat hulls out of ABS plastic, and if a boat hull can withstand the wear and tear, I'm sure these cages can too. Okay, so each unit has 1.5 square feet of floor space per cage. I very seldom will go over 3 birds per square foot. So that's going to give me 5 or 6 birds per cage. So I'd probably put 1 male and maybe 4 or 5 hens in with them. If I was just to put the hens in there for egg laying purposes, I might push that to 7 or 8 birds per unit. The height inside the cage seems to be sufficient. It looks to be about 10 inches in the front, maybe 8 in the back. I haven't measured that, so I'm just kind of eyeballing that one. But the height is sufficient for the males to mount the hens. I have noticed breeding behavior in the cages, and the roosters didn't seem to have any problems mounting the hens and breeding with them. So, okay, when I was assembling these cages, the first thing I noticed was the size of the doors, and I was kind of concerned that I was going to have some issues accessing inside the cages, whether I was putting birds in or reaching in to take them out, or servicing the water system. But after trying out the cage for the past couple weeks, I found that the cages that I built, I severely oversized the doors. These cages have plenty of room to get in, to reach in, grab the birds out, and replace them. You can also easily grab the or access the nipple for the watering system. The only problem that I'm having as far as access is concerned is the bottom tier. I'm getting a little bit older, and bending down that time. Sometimes I don't have a problem getting down there, but I do have a problem sometimes getting up. So that's it as far as the cage access is concerned. Okay, the feeders. I like the feeders. They're easy to clean. They hold about 5 pounds of food each, so that's actually more than my J feeders will hold. So it's going to keep the birds in feed for a little bit longer. Okay, as far as the egg collection system goes, like I said earlier, the floor is at a steep enough angle to where everything rolls forward, but not too steep to where you're going to end up with broken or cracked eggs. I like the fact that you can move the feed troughs up and out of the way to get any eggs that may have accumulated up inside. I did get one egg that got hung up on the post for the front of the cage. Basically all I did was tap the side of the cage and it rolled right out. So yeah, the egg rollout system is acceptable. Okay, and as far as the watering system, it seems to be performing as it should. I haven't had any issues with the water nipples leaking, nor have I had any problems with the cups overfilling into and flowing into the manure trays. My birds didn't have any problem converting from the cup style waterers to the nipple style. The watering system consists of a 5-gallon container with a lid, which is handy for keeping debris and feathers and whatnot, dust, out of the watering system, which could possibly clog the filter. Also, it's easy to access for adding your electrolytes and vitamins and mineral supplements. So another thing, the bottom of the fill tube, or the bottom of the tube, has a drain plug on it that you can drain the entire system should you need to service any of the nipples or just do any type of work on the watering system. The only thing that I could nitpick on this is I wish there were baffles inside this container to keep the water from splashing back and forth. I have a couple times pulled the cage out away from the wall and the water comes with it and splashes over and actually gets into the feed cup. But that's not a big deal, if you take caution when you're moving the cage. I did notice some people were saying that they were having issues with algae buildup inside this container, and recommended that you either cover it or paint it black to keep the algae buildup down. I haven't had any problems with that. Like I say, I've only had it in use for a little over 2 weeks, but I can tell you from some of my other watering systems, algae doesn't seem to be a problem. I'm using city water, which has got chlorine in it, but you can also add a couple tablespoons or a tablespoon or so of apple cider vinegar, and that'll kind of deter the algae growth in the water. Okay, and each tier comes with its own individual manure tray, which slides in underneath the housing units. The manure tray is made of a sturdy black plastic. It also has a raised lip around the outside edge, which helps to contain the manure and prevent spillage when you're pulling the trays out. Also, I like to put a little bit of pine shavings in the manure trays just to help with the moisture of the manure. It dries it out and kind of keeps the smell down. Another thing that I was pleasantly surprised to find out was that my metal automotive drip pans that I use as manure trays on my home-built cages fit perfectly in this unit. And it's always nice to have something to slide in there while you are cleaning out the trays that belong to the unit. So that's a big plus. Another big point, a selling point for me on this cage is the ease of mobility. The cage moves around very nicely on the casters, and I like to pressure wash my cages on a quarterly basis. So basically what I'll do is I'll pull all the birds out, throw them in a holding pen, wheel the unit outside, pressure wash the cage and the manure trays, and then I'll spray it down with a disinfectant spray and bring it back in. I'll let it dry off and then I'll bring it back in and put the birds back in. Okay, so my thoughts on this system are, I think this is a very well thought out caging system. I think it meets the needs of the quail and the requirements of the quail. I think it also meets the needs and the requirements of the breeder or the farmer. There are a few modifications that I'd like to see added or applied, but it's definitely not a deal breaker. I think these cages are perfect for the small to medium-sized breeder or hobbyist, and that they'll provide many years of useful service. I can't speak for the commercial industry or the hatcheries, just because I don't have any experience in that field. I do think that they fit the theme of this channel perfectly. Well, this channel being small-scale quail breeders in an urban setting, being the theme of the channel. And I think that these cages just fall right into that bracket. And even more perfectly for the person who only keeps a few quail, you know, the individual quail keepers. Because the cage is a modular design, you decide how much of a caging system you need, and you can add on to that as your operation grows, if need be. Okay, and with that said, I am going to give these cages a 5-star rating out of 5. I think they're a very well thought out design. I think they're very hygienic. I know they're easy to keep clean, and I think that they meet all the requirements and the needs of my quail. So with that, I am going to recommend these cages. If you have any questions or comments, please post them in the comment section down below. I'll try to answer them as they come up. And if I can't answer them, I will refer the question to Ryan over at Hatching Time, and I'm sure Ryan would be more than happy to chime in and answer some of these questions. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you found this information useful, and if you're not already subscribed to the channel, please do so. It helps me out, and you'll get notified of any new and upcoming videos. So thanks again for joining us today, guys, and we'll see you on the next one.